Hey, Hiza. Hey, this is Joe here. First time, long time, first time caller. Hey, Hiza, my back's been hurting. I play tennis every day. And how do I fix that?
Oh, simple, Joe. Foam roller. It fixes everything.
Ooh, I got one of those at home. The wife has it and it's collecting dust.
Dust it off, get to it, start rolling.
Oh,
Roll it. From your neck all the way down to your butt.
Hey, Cindy, where's the foam roller? Come get it for me. Here you go, hon. All right. I'm on it. I'm on the foam roller. Oh, yeah. That's pretty good.
I told you.
Yes. All right. So now he's how often do I have to do this?
Every day.
Ooh.
In the morning, evening, daytime sometimes. All the time.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah, that's the only way it's going to get better. And when it gets better, you don't stop. You just keep foam rolling. You just keep doing it forever.
Okay, I'll call again next week.
All right, perfect.
Drop the intro.
Alright, I like this.
Oh,
We've had
man.
a lot of serious people lately. So
A lot of serious people. What are you trying to say? I'm hearing you not. You don't think I'm serious. That's what I'm hearing.
You're fun. That's what I like. I want more fun people. You're a good storyteller.
Nothing's fun. Everything is bleak. So bleak.
It's that sarcasm that's really refreshing.
I'm hurting inside.
Welcome to episode 38. Oh, damn, I gotta look this up actually.
Oh man. Oh, he doesn't even know what episode. Oh snap. I
I'm
don't know.
like so backlogged.
What episode? What was the first episode? What episode did I do the first time?
You did episode 3.
I did episode.
You did episode 3.
All right. At least it's under 10, so I'm cool. I'm cool.
You were the you were actually the first interviewee.
That was when you had just your iPhone and the mics.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you just had the little alligator clips.
Uh-huh.
And we were down in Red Zone.
Christine. Right now, I gotta think real quick. Who are the people?
You don't, man. This guy right here.
15, 37, 38, 39. Okay. So I'm gonna include that. That's just like a blooper reel.
We're on episode what now?
39.
All right.
All right.
39. I did 3 and then 39. Damn,
Yes.
what happened in between, bro?
There was a lot of people.
Dang, man. I know. Shoot, you're all over the place.
Welcome to episode 39 of the Catch Up Podcast with Bryan, Sumo, Sumardi, the #1 podcast where you feed your curiosity. And as you can tell from that intro, we have Hiza back.
I'm
from
back.
episode 3.
Oh, man. So good to be back. Thank you very much for inviting me back. I appreciate it. It's always fun catching up with you, man.
For sure. We got to explain that foam rolling skit.
Hey, you explain. You the one that set me up, man.
Well, honestly,
Let me tell you.
That's
First of
me.
all, this guy invites me on his podcast, and he tells me that I got to come up with a skit.
We did it together. It was synergy.
It was a setup.
That's how we did it.
It was a setup.
You brought it up. Synergy was key.
I felt set up. It was a surprise. This is exactly why interviewees ask for notes ahead of time. I now know. I learned my lesson. Between episode 3 and 39, I learned nothing.
But I mean, one thing I think honestly, I do that actually. I have my clients like foam roll initially as like a pre-activation warm up, or just to get a feeling for themselves. Because my thing is like muscle body connection, and you seem to feel like it's not that great.
It's not that I feel like that. It's not really my feelings about it. I think it's just where the evidence is leading us. I think that what we're seeing is that we're basing a lot of performance and takeaways from a piece of equipment that's not doing what we think it's doing. And that to me has been the biggest hurdle with foam rolling. And again, there's absolutely nothing wrong with foam rolling itself if you think it feels good.
Right.
But there is something wrong if you think it's relieving, breaking down scar tissue, or breaking down any sort of adhesions in your body parts that you're rolling, or that if you're breaking down or that you're relieving muscle knots. That's not what's happening.
Do you think it's the same with Graston?
Yeah,
scraping?
same idea. I mean, it's just, I mean, the it feels good, initially, but the benefits are not long lasting,
right?
And which is why you have to keep doing it over and over and over again,
right?
So I mean, to me, that's a really low.
It's a scam.
It's not necessarily a scam, but it's a low bar technique.
Okay.
I more or less look for things that are going to be long-term solutions, not quick band-aids. And these are quick band-aids, but people are advertising them as these miracle fix-alls. And what we're seeing is that more and more people are electing to do this and not really appreciating the fact that your body's a lot more robust than that, but also the sheer force that it takes to actually break down scar tissue or break down, fascia, which is the connective tissue around the body, is significantly greater than what the foam roller can do. So it's thousands and thousands of pounds per square inch,
right?
Rather than your own body weight rolling on it. So to actually deform fascia takes a lot more force than what a foam roller can do.
Okay.
So that's why that to me. So like I said, I'm not anti foam rolling, but what I am against is anyone who tells a client or a patient that foam rolling is doing some sort of magical benefit of relieving, or breaking down scar tissue or breaking down muscle, knots and relieving that, because it doesn't. Obviously, if it did, you'd only need to do it once or twice and it'd be done. But people are foam rolling for years now.
Okay.
I have patients come in and they're like, "Yeah, I've got tight hamstrings. What do you do for it?" I foam roll. I'm like, well, if you've been foam rolling for 5 years and it hasn't gotten better, clearly it's not foam rolling that you need to do. But again, people will keep doing it again and again and again for that hope factor, right?
Right.
And so that to me is what I'm against. I'm against foam rolling. If you tell me, hey, look, man, I foam roll because I feel good.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that.
Okay.
But if you're like, hey, I foam roll so that I can lengthen my hamstring, or that I can get better mobility out of a particular body part, then I have a problem with that, because that's not an evidence-led proposition. It's really more of what we've been kind of anecdotally told, like, hey, you foam roll if you feel tight, or you foam roll if you strain something.
Right.
But there are so many other more beneficial things that you can do that provide or produce a better return on your investment in time and sometimes even money.
Okay. Before I want to get to exactly what you do and how your techniques help the average person, or even to the extreme or elite athletes, what else are the other things? Like I mentioned Graston. What do you think about chiropractic as well?
I think, like every profession, you have professionals, that either build you up or build you down, right? I am not a person that says, hey, one practice or one style is wrong compared to another. But I do have a problem whether you're a physical therapist, a chiropractor, occupational therapist, or whatever, if you create a mindset or an environment that a patient feels they absolutely positively need you and only you, and that I have a problem with, because that is not what our jobs are. Our job is to really provide or develop a therapeutic alliance with our patients and really get them to feel confident in the ability to get back to doing what they enjoy doing.
Right.
The whole purpose of coming to, rehab or chiro or whatever other therapies is so that you can get the hell out of there and get back to doing what you enjoy doing.
Right.
Right. So if I create a mindset or I create an environment where you feel vulnerable because of your injury, or you feel that there's only one way to get out of this jam and it's through me, then I'm not doing you any favors. I'm actually doing you a disservice. And what we end up seeing is that people tend to stay chronically ill in that area for a lot longer than it would actually take.
Right.
As opposed to saying, hey, look, if you've got an injury to your back, whether it's a strain, a sprain, or even a bulging disc, most of these conditions will get better on their own. Most of these things will go away on their own.
Yeah, that was one thing that I wanted to add. I wanted to say about like how we got together is that we had that similar concept that we just wanted people to be done with us. Like we want to help people and then send them along their way.
Yeah.
And one thing I truly like appreciate about your mindset is that we both wanted to help each other out as like practitioners of therapy.
Yeah. Well, first of all, when I get your text, I was like, who is this? And then I thought it was spam. I was like, oh man, this guy wants to meet and discuss stuff. I'm like, oh man. But I think, given the fact that, how I came up was, I asked a lot of questions, and I was lucky enough to have people around me who were more experienced, who actually took me in and gave me the time to kind of ask questions and figure out what the profession is all about, or if I had questions specific to performance. There were people that actually gave of their time without charging me anything to actually sit down and chat with them. So, that's always been my mindset too, is that I love connecting with other professionals, in part because I know how important it is for my own professional growth and development, but I also know where I came from and how I came up. That's what you did.
Right.
The people ahead of you, took you under their wing. Now it's a little different. Now they charge a consulting fee, and
everyone's trying to get theirs.
Yeah, they're trying to get theirs. And so, I guess I'm old, but I guess I'm old school. And when it comes to kind of that mentorship, and I really love the camaraderie that we've been able to develop with, whether it's from the clinical side or the performance side. I think what our system really encourages is really this kind of open dialogue,
right?
And being receptive to different ideas, and also how each side can go about creating the most effective treatment process or most effective performance product for our clients or our athletes or our patients.
Let's get into that. Like, I know I'm from the powerlifting side, and I just lift heavyweight, and I teach my clients that to build their confidence. What other areas of fitness are you like working with, like CrossFit?
So yeah, I work with. Oh man, I feel like I feel so lucky that I haven't pigeonholed myself into one particular avenue. So I work with a myriad of patients. I have triathletes, I have tennis players, I have hockey players, I have lacrosse, I have CrossFitters. I work with bone density or osteopenic or osteoporosis patients. And they all have really unique things in mind, and that is they have very specific goals in mind, and that they want to get back to doing those things, whether it's an active lifestyle, whether it's getting back to performance. All of it is performance-based, right? And so I feel lucky that even with our prenatal and postpartum patients, I think the goal for every person that comes through our doors is really to get back to doing what they enjoy doing. And I think that may be partly why I have not necessarily been pigeonholed as one type of provider, one type of clinician who only works with specific patient population. So I think that that mindset and that curiosity has really kind of taken over the practice, but also being able to work with guys like you and all the other trainers down in Red Zone, I think has really allowed me to also get the exposure and really be able to assist so many more people than I could have ever imagined.
Yeah, because like you yourself, you're a cyclist, you're a runner, so you have that like really close niche. And then you have the trainers that are also here who do CrossFit, power lift, and that's where I kind of wanted to get at. And I was wondering if there are any other areas of fitness that I don't know. Soccer players, I know you also do that international.
Yep, we have got a couple of international players now. It's crazy, but we've got professional tennis players, semi-pros. Yeah, we have. I think that what really gravitates patients and folks to us is really our mindset, which is really get you back to doing what you enjoy doing.
Right.
And I think
it's almost like an elite status, like elite mindset that I feel like we don't believe in scarcity. That we just want to help get to the next level. Piece of my background is this, so let me give you a little bit of tip, and then this is another guy here. He could help you on your other
Right.
aspect.
Yeah, and I think that just like in every other profession, it takes a team to get things done.
Right.
And I think what's more humbling for me is to realize that I'm only a small piece in this individual's life. They have a bunch of other people that they connect with and they see. My job is to really, that piece that they connect with me, just enough for them to nudge them in a different direction and really get them thinking a little bit outside of the fact that, oh, I'm injured now, or I'm here for my whatever injury that may be, but as opposed to, I got to get back to doing what I enjoy doing. I got to get back to, and what does that look like? And so my job is to really appreciate that about them.
Yeah.
And to get a good sense about what motivates them and what doesn't motivate them. But I think that's part of the reason why I don't have a particular niche, if you will. Like I only work with certain, athletes, or I only work with certain demographic. I've got pediatric patients. I've got, octogenarians. I've got, every from anyone and everyone you can think of, I work with. I see neuro patients. I have, patient with, hey, I want to stay active. I'm a stroke survivor, 20 years now. I need to stay active. What do I need to do? I had a trainer before, but the trainer moved on, or I lost motivation. How do I get back to doing those types of things? So these are all the same conflicts that we all experience, right? Like, hey, from a neuro patient who's like, hey, I fell off the wagon from doing my routine.
What's a quick recent story that really comes to your mind, like a success story?
Well, there are lots of success stories, but the best success stories are really, the run of the mill, like, hey, I can't believe that I didn't know that this existed. So I had a patient who called and said to me, hey, look, I know you do, I know you only work with, only like elite athletes, and I need to come, but I'm not an elite athlete. I'm just a mom, and I have, I ended up having back surgery after years and years and years of, agonizing pain that just never went away.
Right.
And I know you only work with professionals, so I'm like I don't.
Yeah.
I work with people.
So you kind of are pigeonholed to that professional athlete kind of.
I think, but that's really more from like
reputation,
whoever they hear it from,
right?
So whoever they get referred to, because all my referrals are really either from coaches, trainers, or other patients.
Okay.
So this person had pretty extensive low back history, and ended up having surgery and had traditional PT that didn't work as well as she'd hoped.
Okay.
And after months and months of that, she was still in a lot of pain. And
what was the initial surgery that she had on her back?
She had a
bulging disc.
Bulging disc that they went in, they repaired.
Okay. Like by the neck or mid-back?
In the low back.
Low back.
So she had a lot of like weakness, a lot of numbness, a lot of tingling down the leg, and that was still present post-op. So she was like, I don't know, the surgery didn't work, yada yada, and I think we spent a lot of time just kind of listening and talking and kind of letting her kind of express herself, because I think that's part of the process, right? The healing process really begins when you can actually listen to them and let them tell you what's been going on, rather than like, yep, I know what's good. I know what to do here. Do exercise 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you'll be fine.
Right.
So I listened to her story. She described, the anguish, and like she lost her sense of self. She was, accustomed to exercising regularly and just doing whatever she wanted to do. And then boom, she's now like laid out and can barely get out of bed and can barely take 10 steps. And so we started slowly and just kind of really talking about her goals and what she wanted. And really, she's just like, I want to get back to, doing and being active and spending time with my family and my kids.
Could you get into the specifics though? Of like what was her goal and how did you relieve that?
So her goal was really to get back to an active lifestyle.
Okay. She was like an athlete prior
she was not necessarily a professional athlete, but
just active.
She was really active, and this surgery really laid her out, and so she was really bummed and she was really depressed.
Okay.
So I mean, I think the first part was just like I said, listening. And then kind of gradually increasing our activities, right? So we just slowly worked on achievable goals, small bite-sized achievable goals. Like, hey, today you are going to walk 5 minutes.
Okay.
Tomorrow you're
on a
going
treadmill,
to walk.
just walking.
Wherever it didn't matter. As in
Okay.
outside, indoor, wherever.
So you don't do this with her. You just that's kind of like her homework.
This is her homework.
Okay.
Yeah. So her homework was really because in the beginning, patients really need to feel like they can do things on their own.
Right.
You need a success, right? You need
Yeah.
a win. You need a W after
After
surgeries,
surgery.
after injuries. You need to find some W along the way.
Yeah.
And so, part of that is really kind of encouraging them that it's not as big a deal as you think. It will get better, but here's how it gets better. And so now you have very specific measurable goals. So she went from walking 2 minutes and having the searing pain down the leg. So coupled with some exercises that I introduced to her and in the walking program, within 2 weeks, she was walking about 10, 15 minutes. And then about 3 weeks, she was doing 30 minutes and feeling good. She was still feeling pretty fatigued, but she was feeling good. So that gave her
Confidence.
that nudge, right? That gave her that nudge, like, oh my God, this stuff is working.
Yeah.
So once they can get to that point where they go, oh my God, this is working,
Yeah.
then you can start introducing
Exercises.
exercises that are
Corrective.
very specific to their injuries and kind of getting that. So that's when we start working on, hey, you got to get back to weight bearing. You got to get those legs stronger again.
So saying what is that? 2 weeks for her to do like the first 10 minutes.
Yeah, I mean,
a day?
it took about 2 weeks. It took about a month before she felt confident enough to walk like 30 to 40 minutes.
Okay. Yeah, that's something I really want to hone in on because I like me being an athlete and working with other athletes, all they want to do is get back there like instantly.
Yeah.
And I really want to highlight and emphasize that it's going to take time for you to acclimate and truly like rebuild true confidence rather than your just ego. Like I can do it because I did it before.
Right. And it is. I mean, I think half of rehab is really a confidence game, right?
Mm-hmm.
You really got to get people confident enough to go, "Oh my God, I can do this."
Yeah.
And so but after a month, she was shocked that she was able to get back to playing with her kids. She was walking again. And then, so what strikes me as even more of a positive is when she came back in about a month or so, after about a month of kind of what we did earlier, she's like, what else could we do?
Okay.
Right? So when someone comes in and that's the first question they ask, that's a huge, huge plus, right?
Right.
Because that tells you that one,
It's too easy.
they not only is it too easy, but that they have now the confidence that they can get back to doing what they want to do.
Right.
What can we do next is really is code for I feel great.
Yeah.
It's about time I need to start getting back to life. So that's when we really kind of get into specific, strength and conditioning stuff for her back and really get back into movements that otherwise made her feel uncomfortable, like a deadlift, like a squat. And then we progressed to like weighted exercises with a deadlift and a squat. And she was like, oh my God, I thought I would have pain, or I thought I would have, a recurrence of my pain.
Right.
And none of that happened. I felt sore, which is good because all my muscles were pretty atrophied for months of inactivity.
Yeah.
And then so, again, it's a slow grade, but once you get to the point where they can kind of take off on their own, I usually reduce their frequency of visits to maybe once every 2 weeks or so.
Okay.
And then I give them an opportunity to really kind of take it over because like I said, most of my patients are already motivated. So I don't really need to see them that often to keep an eye on them.
Right.
What I need to do is give them the opportunity to figure out the rhythm and the process that works best for them. Because let's be honest, we all have lives. We all have schedules that don't really gravitate around strength and conditioning.
Yeah.
So I think it's important to let people figure out a rhythm that works best for them.
Right.
And whether that's, they're doing their exercises at at 6 o'clock in the morning or 6 o'clock at night, it's irrelevant. As long as they can get into a rhythm that works best for them, that's the only way you can create that therapeutic benefit.
The biggest thing that really stood out to me was that when your client said, what else is next, you kind of were just saying like, okay, now we'll get into it. As the powerlifting coach side of me, my experiences is that once they get there, I've kind of been like the leader, and then now I'm kind of been put in a position where I dictate their training, and they see me as the they see me as the, I don't know, what's the word? Not leader, but now as the person they look towards for what's next. And that's one thing I want to get away from. And I was going to ask you, how do you do that other than see them less?
So, I mean, I think that's a great question. I think what separates our practice style from the rest, I think, is that I don't care if that patient gets better, whether it's through me,
Right.
or whether it's through a trainer or a coach. My job is to really create an environment that can happen.
Okay.
Right. So my job is to create an environment that says, hey, look, yes, you have this injury. Chances are it's probably not as bad as you think it is. It hurts like hell, that's for sure.
Right.
But sometimes your pain level and the level of injury may not be the same. Right. And so I think going through that process and just educating people and educating injured people about the nature of their condition really does lower their guard and really gets, oh man, I did not think of it like that. I just thought if I have pain, I shouldn't do.
Yeah.
But you can exercise and have a certain level of pain, and that pain doesn't increase or decrease.
Right.
Right. So I think it's important that we educate people. And so that's kind of what I guess sets us apart, is that my education around pain and around performance is that some pain is acceptable.
Right.
Right. And then some pain is unacceptable.
Okay.
And identifying that pain threshold is important, and really
and
what
everyone
that
is
pain
different.
means, and everyone's
That's
different.
the biggest thing.
And everyone interprets pain differently, culturally,
Right.
Or historically. How you interpret pain, when you get injured is a good reflection of how you react to injuries and surgeries, etc. Right? Some people are really stoic. No big deal, I'm good.
Right.
Which means that post-op, they may not be as sensitive.
Okay.
As opposed to someone's like, oh my God, I've got a paper cut, and oh my God, this is great, it's the end of the world. Which means that they may overreact, or they may have a heightened sense of or increased sensitivity.
But have you seen that athlete that's like too stoic? That's more like they really have like a hairline fracture in their foot, and they're like, I'm still gonna go. The race is next week or something.
Yeah, and I think athletes like that are there, and I think my job is to really educate them on their condition.
Okay.
So all you can do is educate. You can't
Right.
really, I mean, you're not going to stop them from doing anything.
Right.
But I think if you can arm them with enough information about the pros and cons of continuing to perform or not continuing to perform,
It's on their risk.
it's really they take
Their
on
judgment.
that risk, and that's part of being a responsible clinician, is really being okay with them going off the res. And sometimes maybe they will get injured or maybe they won't.
Okay.
Right? But you have to be okay with that, but you also have to be prepared to educate them on the pros and cons of doing those things, right?
Right.
So I think, like I said, our job is really primarily as educators first.
Okay.
I mean, as much as I love the clinical aspect, I think the education part is the most important, because that's what carries over way after they're done hanging out with me.
Right.
Right. So the education and being aware of what my pain means, or what my sensitivity means, or what my injury meant, as opposed to, I don't know, I had a torn ACL, I went to PT, bing, bang, bong, I'm back on the court or I'm back on the field. But I don't know what it takes to continue to maintain this level of fitness, continue to maintain this level of injury-free performance.
Okay.
Right? But if you can educate them, like, hey, look, right now you're going to be doing a lot of intensive work that's geared towards getting that knee strong and healthy. When you're done with me, you're going to have to continue to do that. If you don't, the likelihood of your symptoms coming back goes up, or the likelihood of having chronic pain goes up. And so now they know, okay, if I don't do this, there are some consequences associated with that. And if I do this, there's some ways for me to mitigate that risk. And maybe I can play much more consistently and healthier, and I can feel more confident too.
Okay.
But if you don't include that education component, I feel it's a waste of your time. It's a waste of their time, because there's nothing to take away except for, I don't know, they give me a whole bunch of things to do,
Yeah,
and then
paper booklet.
a little paper booklet.
That's what I gotta do.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I want to rewind it back because you're saying like back into the business aspect of being old school. You have a lot of kind of like interns. Is that what you would call them?
They're not interns really. I guess they're more like mentees.
Mentees.
So
Okay.
yeah, I think every once in a while I'll get an email or text from a PT student or a student in the allied field, and they're like, "Hey, I saw your content online, and I'm really interested in seeing how you do things,
Right.
Because it looks different, yada yada." Like, yeah, sure, absolutely, come hang out and kind of see what we do. And sometimes they'll say, "Hey, do you mind if I shadow you for a couple of weeks and see how how you interact with patients and how you interact with your colleagues and how your system, how your dynamics
work, how your system works."
Yeah. So, and that's a really humbling thing, and I really I love those opportunities because it's really confirmation that teamwork is important. It's really confirmation that what you can do on your own is nowhere near what you can do when you can collaborate with other people.
Right.
Because I don't think I would have that opportunity if it hadn't been for all these collaborations and all these occasional run-ins and connections that you just don't know where they're gonna go. Right. I didn't know we were gonna have this kind of friendship when we first met. I didn't know. I was like, I just think he just wanted to come hang out, see what I do, and then that was that.
Right.
Cut to a year and a half later or so, almost 2 years, bro.
Almost 2 years. Yeah.
Almost 2 years, man.
It was a year for the first podcast,
and you're
and
still tolerating me.
You have some knowledge. You have a lot of knowledge that I just know if I were to spend my time learning that knowledge, it would almost, I wouldn't say it'd be a waste, but then I'd be less advantageous with my own field rather than I could just, hey, I know a PT, go see my man Hiza. Yeah. And then we'll come back. Like, cause it's more about trust. And again, like that synergy and the belief that there's not scarcity in business.
Right.
That's one thing I really want to emphasize in like the podcast and just a mentality.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I think operating on an abundance mentality is important because you have to realize that, first of all, you can't treat everybody.
Right.
You can't see everybody. You can't train everybody, and I think if you just stay in your lane, do what you do well, and you do it consistently and you do it with great regularity, it's just like powerlifting, right?
Yeah.
You don't get to those gains without the consistency and gradual build up and learning from those mistakes and fine tuning and adjusting, etc. Same thing like in business. I mean, I think you keep doing, even though you may not even think that it's going to be a huge success. You just know that that's what you need to do to get to that next level.
Right.
And you just keep plugging away. And I think that's a mentality that entrepreneurs just instinctively have. Yeah. Is that we don't necessarily do it just for the financial gains. We just know that it could go either way. Right. And you have to be okay with it, and you've got to be okay with the pain that comes with it. You got to be okay with the with the pain for the amount of work it takes to build that up.
Right.
You've got to be okay with the sleepless nights. You've got to be okay with all of those things at the same time.
Right.
And I think that that mentality is really what allows people like us to kind of keep moving forward, because between you and I'm sure we've tried and attempted a number of things that have either worked or failed miserably.
Right. I can definitely attest to that.
So I think that to me, but we're still here, right? And I think that's an important thing about entrepreneurship, is that you are going to try and fail a lot.
Right.
And I think how you fail is really important. Failure is really sometimes success, because failure can get you out of jams too that you didn't really see coming until like you go, oh man, I'm glad that didn't pan out, because that situation would have been horrible.
Yeah, because I like to think of it as like always an experiment. Yeah. Everything I do, like no matter what, it's always going to be an obstacle, and then whether I can overcome it, that's going to be a pivotal point of my life,
but
my
bro,
career.
That's the best part.
I know. No, I agree to that. That's the best part.
Yeah. The troubleshooting and figuring out how do I solve this problem?
Yeah.
How do I address this? How do I even tackle this? How do I solve this issue that is just so big, that's just so insurmountable? How do that that's what entrepreneurship is all about. Even if it completely goes sideways.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of our mindset, is that we just dive in head first and just hope that there's water.
Hope it's deep enough so I can not hit my head on the bottom.
Exactly. Hope, or just barely scrape.
So I survived.
Yeah.
But that kind of brings me now, like, I have an issue with the state of the fitness industry, or the health and fitness industry, and I think you probably know where I'm getting at.
Issue. Oh
Yeah.
man, Bryan has an issue. Come on.
It's like, what really grinds my gears right now?
All right, Bradley.
But it's the fact, like, kind of it goes in hand with what we do when we teach and educate. You're almost kind of seen, and I've been getting this a lot more recently. It's like I'm turning into a life coach or like a mentor, but to me in a bad way, because most people who are famous in the health and fitness industry are known for their looks, and as we both know, sometimes looks are overrated, or it's almost just fake, because their true personalities and personas and actions don't really align with their identity that they portray to others. I wonder what your feelings on like the social construct of the health and fitness industry right now.
I mean, I think I mean, we're facing that in the healthcare field as well. I mean, I think we're seeing a lot of overhyped, very well marketed content being put out there. Yeah, that has zero merit or any benefit. But it's very hard to refute, a very sexy ad, a very sexy marketing ploy with, "Hey, I've got some evidence that suggests that that's not the case." Right. It's very hard to refute that. Right. So,
but no one ever likes the details portion of it.
Exactly. And I think that's kind of, maybe, I guess it's just the way social media is designed now. It's really, it's a fly-by-night operation, right? They just drop a bomb and you can just like leave. Yeah. And you don't have to deal with the consequences. You don't have to explain, why your method is the way it is, or why your, philosophy is the way it is. Right. But yeah, I mean, I think fitness industry, sex sells and aesthetic sells, and people want to, put themselves in bodies or in attributes that certain people have, and they kind of try to almost put themselves into that. And I think sometimes that's the downside to overhyped stuff, is that you get yourself in trouble, because in your mind you're like, oh, I'm gonna look like that. Yeah. But I think most people who want to look like that aren't prepared to sacrifice. Yeah. Right? You're really not prepared to sacrifice, because to look a certain way, to look, especially when it comes to, body image issues or physiques, I mean, those individuals sacrifice a lot. Right. They sacrifice, I mean, for just the aesthetics. So yeah, if that's what you want, you got to realize that it's not just about working out. It's all the sacrifices that come with that. Right. It's all the sacrifices about, and all, I mean, I'm sure you know more details about that than I would, but, as far as, what you're eating, sleeping, drinking, all those things, you've got to really sacrifice. There's no late night snacks with,
there's discipline
that includes Oreos, and there's none of that. So the idea that if I just read this book, or if I just, start this movement, I can look like that, or I can have a shredded, physique is disingenuous. Yeah. But I think that's what sells, right? Because everybody wants to put themselves into that. And that's why it's so marketable, because it's an almost unachievable goal for most people, because most people don't know
what it takes,
sacrifice,
what it truly takes to reach that level,
to look at that, to look that way. And I'm not saying it's healthy. Yeah. I'm just saying it takes a lot of sacrifice, and most people are not prepared for that.
Right. Like, honestly, for me too, like, I've gotten to the point where, like, back in 2015, I was probably the leanest, the shreddest I've ever been. And now when I have clients or prospective clients who come at me like, I want a six pack, I'm like, okay, I can help you get there, but I don't advise you staying there, because I've been there and I don't want to go back.
Yeah, it's not happy.
The
place.
lifestyle isn't fun.
It's not happy. You know, there's not. I mean, and that's the big elephant in the room is that, you know, and the same thing with, you know, with business, right? Like, hey, if you need to get to that next level, like, hey, you know, if you look at whether it's a CEO or whatever, or, you know, someone runs, they're sacrificing a lot. They're sacrificing time with family. They're sacrificing, you know, time with friends. They're sacrificing, you know, just to get to where they are. So yeah, I think we end up just like looking at just the end product.
Yeah.
Right. And no one really sees, you know, the sacrifices and the pain and the anguish that goes into the destruction that sometimes you have to leave in the
They
in
just
the
see
wake.
that glory.
You just see
it's
the
always like that
top.
meme of the iceberg.
Yeah,
Like, you only see the top
exactly.
10%.
Yeah.
The other 90% is underwater that you'll never see.
Very similar to that, and I think that's something that you know, I'm very careful about acknowledging when people say, or hey, you know, I heard about you doing blah 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 blah, and I'm like, yeah, I mean, that's one thing that we do.
Yeah.
But I don't want to hitch my wagon to just one thing that works really well.
Right.
I want it to be an individualized process, and I don't want every patient that comes in that says, hey, but so and so got that and they're doing this. But everyone's different.
Yeah.
Everyone's different. Everyone's sacrifice point is different.
Yeah.
And so I think that's kind of coming back at the education part, right? You know, if you want to get back to performing, there's a certain sacrifice you got to make.
Yeah.
That means your strength and conditioning's got to be on point. Your prehab's got to be on point. Your rehab's got to be on point. Your return to sport has got to be on point, and it's got to be consistent.
Yeah.
And that means you've got to sacrifice time.
Right.
Time, money.
Yeah.
You know, resources, training time, all of those things. So, yeah, I mean, I think that kind of goes without saying. We all have to make sacrifices, and we all make sacrifices.
Something I truly admire about like your marketing of your business is that it is very consistent. Like, you show exercises, techniques that would help a certain situation, but you never show clientele doing it, because every person is different. And because I do that, I like highlight my clients and their achievements. It kind of puts me on the negative aspect when people see that, like, oh, if she can do it, that means you can help me do that. Mm-hmm. But her genetics aren't your genetics. So it may be harder, or it may even be easier for you, depending on, even though it's the same goal and you're male, female, it puts me in a difficult situation because of the way that I market myself. Yeah. So I just want to say I truly admire your consistency.
I appreciate that. I think, I mean, the only reason that was just accidental, because most of my patients, it's a HIPAA violation to record them and then post their stuff online, right?
I see.
So so that's kind of where it came out. But you know, one of the things that I'm debating on doing now is also kind of illustrating or highlighting some of interesting cases and how we've kind of gotten them back to doing what they enjoy doing. So I'm still kind of playing around with that. I've got a lot of video content because I do record a lot of my patients and the way they do things, obviously with their permission. Right. But we do record a lot of their movements and just for reflection sake, and also for technique sake too. So
I see.
So we have a lot of video content, and you know, and all my patients are really nice, and they're like, yeah, you want to post it, but I'm not comfortable posting a lot of content with patients on them, because again, like you said, you know, I don't want it to be like, well, that person came in and they got that, and look, and how come I don't have that same result? Yeah. But if it's a really interesting case, like, hey, you know, here's a person that had a stroke and and they're having all this, they had all these other issues, but here's what we're doing to kind of retrain motor control. Here's what we're doing to retrain, you know, performance, and here's how we're doing to retrain certain aspects of their recovery. Yeah. That's interesting. It's very specific, and not a lot of people are, you know, kind of dealing with that. So it's I would like to start to highlight some of the unique patients that we see, but again, most patients are just like you and I. They just want to get back to their lifestyle, and they don't want their videos all over the internet. The other part is like, it's like I don't really know. I don't need it. So the reason why I initially just recorded myself was primarily because it was it's a medical violation to record people without and posting their stuff without their consent.
Right.
But I was like, I don't want to start to deal with all those consents and figure out who signed what waiver when. I was like, you know what? It's just easier if I just do it myself.
Okay.
And so that's why I do it that way. But what I've really enjoyed the most is really the kind of triggers that I get when I'm working with patients, because I'll go through a particular movement and they'll say something along the lines like, hey, but I always still feel this and this and this when I do this. So that gives me a lot of information too about, oh, maybe I can modify and do this. Or what if we did this and changed, instead of this leg holding here, what if it was over here, because that person can't move because they have a stroke, or that leg can't move as well because they have the stroke. So it's really, that's usually where I get a lot of the ideas from, is my patients.
Yeah. So speaking on the patients too, is like on balance. Do you ever find issues trying to help clients help their balance between their goals? Because I find, me personally, with clientele who want a goal, but they're not ready to discipline themselves to reach that goal, but they insist on reaching a certain goal. Do you know what I mean?
I do. I think it kind of stems back to
education,
not just the education, but really getting to spend a lot of time with them and really seeing what their goals look like, and then designing a program that allows them to see what that goal could be. Right. Rather than like, well, I'm going to take this information and just tell you what you need to do to get strong, but as opposed to, hey, I really enjoy the fact that you told me that you have, you're going to be a grandma, or you're going to be an uncle, or you're going to be a cousin, nephew, whatever. And one of the things you're worried about is your back not feeling good when you pick up the baby. Well, here's how you can start working on addressing that. Exercise 1, 2, 3, do a couple of these things. And so they're always tied to something that they want to get back to doing. So you need a linchpin that kind of holds them accountable. Like, I'm doing this so I can play with my grandbaby, my nephew, my niece, my whatever, my cousin, etc. So it has to be tied to something that they enjoy doing, which is why, kind of coming again full circle, is that spending that time and listening to what they have to say, listening to their lifestyle, gives you a lot of reasons, gives you a lot of ways to motivate them to stay consistent with their exercise.
So you're almost refining their goal to be actually achievable, and specifically to what they actually can do or want to do.
Right. Yeah. Okay. It has to be. It's got to be tailored towards things that make sense to them. Otherwise, you're wasting your time.
Right.
Like, if I have no reason to be a gardener, why would I, reference movements that improve gardening, or your static stance in gardening, like a bent over position? I'm not gardening. However, if you're like, hey, I enjoy hiking and I would love to get back to hiking, the Appalachian Trail, or the Billy Goat Trail, or whatever, that you can tie to, okay, well, here's where you are now. You've got balance issues, or you got strength issues, or you got coordination issues, or combination of all these things. Here's what we need to do to get you back to walking or hiking the Appalachian Trail. Here's what we need to do to get you back to doing the Billy Goat Trail. So now it's like, okay, I'm doing this so I can get back to a specific thing or my lifestyle. But if you're like, well, you got poor balance, your coordination is terrible, and you need to learn how to do all this, so start standing on one leg, or so you start to throw a whole bunch of stuff. If there's no context to why they're doing it, they're not going to stick to it. Right. So there needs to be a rationale as to why they're doing it, in order for it to make sense to them. Because internally, it has got to be, in order for you to have been the power lifter that you are. There's not just a matter of like, I just got to get up and lift. There's a reason you got up every day to do it. You had specific goals. You have specific mindset. You have specific milestones that you want to achieve. Right. That's what motivates you, or motivated you, to lift that number that you did and you crushed it,
Yeah.
right? So you have to take that into consideration with patients as well. Patients need that same motivation. Clients need that same motivation. Saying lift this so you can lift more weight doesn't really work as effectively.
Yeah. Okay.
Right? It's just, hey, we need you to lift so that we can get to the next step, which will allow you to do blah, 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 or tolerate more dynamic movements or more compound movements, which would build more muscle or recruit more muscle. So it has to be tied to something that makes sense.
Can we talk about that again? I remember when we did the running seminar. I forgot what it was now. What were the 3 steps we did? It was just like the ability to move.
Yeah. So comprehensive capacity.
Yep. Then it was load.
Yep.
And then volume.
Yep. And then volume.
Okay. Could you explain it in your own words, how that all ties together?
Well, I mean, that's kind of the essence of pretty much everything when it comes to prehab, right? Okay. So prehab stuff, really the idea isn't so much that you need to have them just do things passively. They need to figure out what that movement looks like.
Okay.
And the muscles that are necessary to produce that movement or support that movement, which is kind of the comprehensive capacity.
Right.
Once they've identified that, once they've figured that out, once they resolve that, then you can start adding load to that movement or to that exercise or to that area. And so that's building load capacity, right? So, adding an external load is how you develop better load capacity, getting back to doing work. Now, once you've started to develop some load capacity, then you need to do some volume training because you need to have a baseline fitness that allows you to do that work repetitively, right?
And to be scalable.
So that's where volume or scaling volume is so important. So, yes, that's pretty much the essence of everything that we do when it comes to prehab or return to our performance is that we look at what can your body do?
Yeah.
How well can your body support itself and do that movement? What does that look like when we introduce an external stressor or load? And then what does that look like when we're building volume with that external stressor and
Could
load?
we go into a specific example of that whole sequence with running? Like, what's a common thing? We said plantar fasciitis or Achilles tendonitis.
Right. So you can a lot of what we call tendinopathies, or so that includes plantar fasciitis and Achilles stuff. But tendinopathies are really it's kind of a broad term for any injuries of the foot and ankle or tendons of the foot and ankle associated with repetitive stress.
Right.
So again, most of these injuries are repetitive stress in nature. But there's also a strong correlation to lack of load capacity or lack of overall comprehensive capacity, meaning that if you train too aggressively, if your volume of your miles increases too quickly, you run the risk of injuries, injuring these tendons and ligaments. So return to performance after these types of injuries. What I would do first is really getting the body to just tolerate the load, right? Single leg standing, doing a calf raise.
So that's the capacity first or load first? That's
comprehensive capacity.
Okay.
Right? So comprehensive capacity would be doing like a calf raise.
Okay.
Right? So a calf raise isn't just the foot and ankle coming up and down.
Right.
It's the gastroc doing work. It's the soleus doing work. It's the quad and the hamstring all supporting the joint. It's the glutes supporting you. So in order for you to do that single leg, right?
So like in layman term, it's just being able to understand
body
term awareness.
Is comprehensive capacity is really looking at
specific to running.
Yeah, so so specific to running. So when we're doing like a plantar fascia type issue, what we see is that by having all those other muscles from your hip all the way down to the actual area that's injured, when they can all work together without an external load, that's what comprehensive capacity is. Right? Having all these muscles working together to produce a movement that supports a run.
Right. So step one is that.
Step one is that. Really getting all these muscles to work together and also to perform that movement flawlessly, right? Smoothly.
What would you be looking for in that calf raise?
One, you want to look at fluidity. Is it smooth? Is it a smooth movement? Is it choppy? Are they compensating? Are they rolling their foot, try to shy away from loading that area.
Okay.
So anything that's going to be out of the ordinary, like if you had an injury, right? There's a certain way you'd probably move to try to shy away from
compensation.
stressing that. Yeah. So you look for compensations. Once you've kind of identified that there aren't, then you can start adding loads, right? So you can add a kettlebell, dumbbell, whatever, and have them do a calf raise like that, or
external stimulus on top of that.
And so the volume training will come. Now you can do, high reps, or you can do static holds with that load, right?
Okay.
So you can,
or in other words, time under tension.
Time under tension, right? So you can. So that's how you can adjust for volume, and that's how you can adjust for capacity as well, right? So you can increase someone's capacity not just by obviously tacking on more weight and having to move more weight, but also you can work on how well they can hold and maintain those contractions under and maintain that tension under load.
I have to really say, after that seminar, it truly changed my type of training as well. Because then I start researching other powerlifters, like deeper. Jen Thompson, she's a math teacher. I forgot where, almost like middle America, but she benches like 315 pounds at like a body weight of less than 130 pounds. And one thing that she does specifically, she does static holds with the bench press. So she would just unrack the bar and just hold it for about 5 to 10 seconds and then just re-rack it of weights that she cannot do. So the external stimulus helped her push heavier weight. Because to me, that's
it also builds
astonishing.
It also builds a lot of more tendon robustness too,
right?
Yeah. So when your tendons can get used to and tolerate more loads, it's much easier to move those loads too.
Exactly.
So, but that's essentially what happens with plantar fascia stuff, as well as that by increasing the ability to hold and maintain those loads over time, you develop more robustness there. You develop better tolerance to impact, which is really what resolves a lot of your symptoms, right? So a lot of your symptoms take months to resolve, but in that process, you should be developing a lot of robustness, a lot of fitness, a lot of capacity, a lot of load capacity to all those structures so that it doesn't recur.
Yeah. I think to me, though, like most trainers, like new trainers, they don't really apply the two principles of progressive overload and I think mainly time under tension. So that's one thing I want to say that's awesome.
And I think it's hard because it's a philosophy thing too, right? It's all depends on how you're trained, right? And again, most trainers,
they're trained out of a book.
If you're trained out of a book, it's hard. But connecting with other people who think differently, who don't necessarily follow the norm,
traditional
traditional guidelines. I think you can really learn a lot, and there are a lot of great professionals out there that are doing amazing work. Lots of research out there, so that's kind of what the evidence-based or evidence-led.
But do you think there's any other people who have like intangible results that you can't really explain through science, but it's been almost like consistently proven? Do you believe in that?
What do you mean by that?
I guess it's almost the same thing as like foam rolling, or like when I was mentioning Jen Thompson, she's like a world record holder for the bench press at her body weight. It's not really a concept a philosophy that she really puts out there, but then it's just how she trains. When I was telling you, she just holds a bar over her body, and just that.
But if you think about it, I mean, in order for her to have come to that conclusion, somebody must have provided that information. There's information out there on performance, right? So I think that's where you have to, it's not just about being an evidence-led practitioner or provider. You also have to make sure that the research is valid, right? So there's a lot of information out there that's evidence-based, and a lot of it is not necessarily consistent with what we're seeing. So I think for her being knowledgeable enough to go, this is good information, this is bad information, probably allows her to stay one step ahead and stay really fit too, right? So it's not just about, hey, I'm going to go in there and just move weight. I mean, that's kind of what I talk about with a lot of high performers too, is that your training should be sub-max.
Right.
And then gradually leading up to your events or your performances, that's when you basically are at your peak during your competition, and then you come back down, right? Like you don't want to, there shouldn't be a PR every week.
Okay.
Right? You don't want a PR every week and then try to compete at the same time. It's very difficult because you're pretty much going to be thrashed and there's nothing left, right?
Yeah.
So let's say you have, a CrossFit competition, right?
Okay.
Let's say you have a CrossFit competition.
Yeah.
If you're training 100% day in and day out leading up to that, there's nothing left.
Okay.
Right? There's nothing left. Your body's not recovering properly. Your body's its ability to respond to stress and stimulus isn't going to be as consistent as it would if you were doing everything sub max,
right?
And then gradually building up, and then when competition comes, then you just open it up and you just tear it up. And so when you look at it like that, you can see it's easy. I don't know if you're familiar with this, but there were every CrossFit game every year, we get this
influx of injuries.
Not necessarily influx, but we see the statistics, and a lot of the injuries are really failures, right? You get ruptures, right, which are failures, right. So when the tendon can no longer tolerate that load, it fails or snaps or whatever you want to call it,
right.
But what we're seeing is that if you look back at their training, they were training pretty aggressive the entire time,
right,
and not necessarily appreciating that it takes time to build up, but that build up should peak at your performance level, and then you got to come back down, right?
Yeah.
You peaks at competition, then it comes back down and then levels off.
I was gonna say, for powerlifting, it's a little bit different, at least in my perspective, and I think it's probably my biggest issue when training other people, because there is a method called the conjugate method that was really brought up in like the old school methods, where we would acclimate almost every week on each lift. So like I would max out my squat, bench, deadlift on a weekly basis. I would have periodization where I don't, but because the competition is all literally 9 lifts, 3 lifts of each exercise, I'm not really exceeding my max volume, and that's where it differs. So I train harder in practice or my own training versus competition. So once competition time comes, for me, it's just like, oh, okay,
right,
cool.
Well, but that, and like you said, I think it's specific to competition. But if you're looking at, for example, even with boxers,
anything,
boxers are not training balls to the wall
from
day one until like competition, right?
Yeah.
It's a gradual build up, and so when when it's fight time, that's when their fitness is peaking, right. So, but I think in powerlifting, again, I don't have a huge history, or I don't work with a lot of powerlifters, but I think that who compete like that,
right.
But I think it makes sense that your events are very short, quick burst, and then that's that, right, as opposed to someone who's got you're dealing with endurance and power at the same time,
right, like cardio,
so I think it's just different. And I think that the training methods are different, and I think that's kind of what I was saying earlier, that it's so important for me to connect with other like-minded people, because that's just a new tidbit that I didn't know about,
right.
I just learned something new. So I think it's vitally important that that you learn and you take away from that, and also realize that you probably don't know as much as you think you know.
Right.
And I think you've got to be open to that idea and be okay with that.
Yeah.
Be okay. And sometimes it's perfectly okay to say, I don't know why you're hurting, or I don't know why you're not making any progress.
Right.
Rather than trying to make an excuse for it, or make something up to rationalize it.
Yeah. Because like me, my background with sports was playing football, wrestling, a lot of team sports where cardio is very essential. And going into the powerlifting world, competitions do last like 9 hours for 9 lifts.
Yeah.
So it's almost ridiculous to think you can max out your squat in the first 3 hours time frame, and then let your body calm back down. In the next 3 hours, you have to max out again within 3 lifts for your bench press, and then again for your deadlift, because it's just mentally taxing. And that's the biggest thing that I guess this is more sport specific, but I honestly train calm, and it's very rare for me to find other power lifters specifically who train calm as well. So for when I teach my philosophy and methods, it's almost absurd. They're like, why are you so at ease?
Yeah. Well, I think that makes, I mean, training, you have to be calm.
Yeah.
Performance, you have to be calm. You know, and I think that's an important attribute. I think that's what sets you apart.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that I often get that too. It's like, wow, you're pretty relaxed about this stuff.
Yeah.
You're pretty like, because it is. I mean, there's not much you can do. You can't change people. All you can do is just nudge them.
Right.
You just nudge. You can't shove them into new behaviors. You can't, you know, trick them into doing more. You just have to nudge them into changing their behaviors. And that's pretty much, you know, what coaches and healthcare providers do when they're working with people, is that we're nudging. We're nudgers. We just nudge. Like, oh, that's great. Try this.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Let's move on to this. As opposed to, I need you to change the way you lift, or I need, because that's not realistic either.
Right.
Oh, I need you to change the way you squat, because everyone squats differently.
Yeah.
And
I think now it made me realize something that makes us very synergetic is that we share that trait, that character trait, that we're very calm,
just relaxed.
Yeah, but I mean, we still perform at a high level.
Yeah, just relax and just don't make it weird.
Yeah, but I think my biggest thing, I guess this is where I was getting at in terms of the fitness philosophy, is that we are almost like anomalies in sports in general, because most people, like, especially when I go to like random gyms, if I'm just visiting, it's like, oh, did you take your pre-workout? Did you do this? Did you do that? Like me personally, I've taken pre-workout maybe less than I can count on my fingers. And I never understood when people tell me like, oh, I had a long day at work, I did this, I did that, but like, you shouldn't rely on that.
Yeah, and I mean, and I think that's
it's almost like substance abuse, like
literally.
It
But that's what clever marketing does, right? Clever marketing is convince people that they need this.
Really?
Right? I mean, I think that's always going to be the case, and you know, it's like once that's out of the bottle, it's hard to bottle it back.
Okay.
Right? It's impossible. I mean, try to tell someone who's taking that to, nah, you probably don't need it anymore. Like, are you crazy?
Yeah.
This is what I do.
This is my life.
Coming full circle, that's exactly what happens with foam rolling. Right? It's like this. It's the same mindset. It's like,
okay,
you know, somebody told me that if I do this, I'm going to break this up. I'm going to stretch this, or I'm going to reduce this. So that's what I do. But telling someone like you shouldn't foam roll is like telling someone, you know, it's like telling someone they shouldn't take pre-workout.
Okay,
They're gonna be like, you're crazy.
That makes
sense.
sense.
But you have to. But the only way you can do that is to really find out what
Why?
it is that they're doing and what it is that they think is happening.
Okay.
And then you can help them kind of see things differently. But you can't, like, don't take that, it's stupid, or evidence says that it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Obviously,
They don't want to hear that.
No one's gonna want to listen to
Doesn't
that, and that is not something that is going to be received well.
Right. All right. How about changing lanes? I want to know what's your current curiosity, or what's on your mind with clients, or in the current state of physical therapy. Like, what are you like currently researching?
Oh,
man, trying to learn about?
I'm doing a lot more work now with bone density patients.
Okay.
And I'm trying to, you know, because they're all,
as you age, your bone density goes down, right?
Yes, that's one thing that happens. But what we see is that exercise and lots of powerlifting like exercises actually can significantly reduce that risk and reduce
reduce bone density?
Reduce the effects of bone density loss.
Oh,
right. Reduces the effects. So
they're more rigid,
right?
With heavy
so
lifting.
The heavier you lift, there's a law called Wolff's law.
Okay.
Basically, it says the more stress, the more you stress a bone, the stronger
Better.
it gets.
Okay.
The stronger it gets, the more resilient it gets.
So it's almost like the Darwin thought: only the strong survive.
No. No, it's not Darwinism at all. This
Okay.
is just a principle that says the more you can stress a bone, the stronger it gets. So squats, lunges, deadlifts, these are all stressors that put a lot of tremendous pressure on bone, muscle, and ligaments, tendons, etc.
Okay.
But what happens over time is that your body actually stimulates more growth and more deposit or more bone deposit. So you actually get
Calcium
thicker,
deposit?
Yeah, calcium. But you get thicker. You get thicker bones, and you get better connections. Right? You get more robust connective tissue.
So there is such thing as being big boned.
Yeah, there is such thing as being big bones. Yeah, but I mean, and it's so funny you mentioned that because again, it's very rare that you're going to see an overweight person with osteoporosis, right? So
Define that for me. Osteoporosis.
Osteoporosis is what? So basically, osteopenia and osteoporosis are all conditions of bone loss or levels of bone loss, right?
Okay.
So depending on they do a special test that measures bone density.
Yeah.
And based on that bone density, you get a number, and that number tells you where you are in that, whether you're, osteopenic, which is like you're losing some, but not that bad, to osteoporosis, where you've lost a significant amount of bone mass. And basically, osteoporosis, just as the name sounds, you get these tiny little holes in the bone, right? And the more the holier they get,
they get
thinner,
brittle.
right? They get more brittle, which means that your risk for fractures goes up.
So I'm having a little brain blast right now. So
Brain blast.
when I'm thinking about overweight people, so overweight people, they have more weight on their bodies, meaning more weight is pressured onto their bones. Are they strengthening their bones in a way, but then reducing their health?
They do have better bone density, but again, I think I'd have to confirm that with a couple of research articles. I can't completely confirm that, but what we do see is that obviously they're not going to be suffering from fractures, hip fractures.
Yeah.
But again, the risk benefit analysis is a bit skewed. But
Okay.
I think that's a valid research topic. That's what I'm looking into is like if you think about even when it comes to weight loss, right? I mean, the skinnier you are, the harder it is to lose weight, right? The more fit you are, the harder it is to lose weight. Yeah. Because it takes more energy.
Body fat percentages.
Well, not just body fat, but it takes more energy to do the same amount of work as if you were, let's say if you're 30 pounds heavier, it takes you a lot, it uses more energy to move a body that's 30 pounds heavier than 30 pounds lighter.
Okay.
Right? So that's part of the reason why it takes more energy to maintain a certain physique, right? It takes more energy to maintain a certain body style or a body image, right? So if you're saying, hey, I need to lose weight, it's important to realize that losing weight is a lifestyle change.
Right.
And you have to stay on top of it. It's not just, okay, I got to my goal, done. Yeah. Because it will take you even more effort to maintain that level. So that's kind of coming back with the, life goals and stressors, right? You've got to be able to, you got to pick your poison. Right. You got to be okay with the decisions that you make. Like, hey, if you want to look a certain way, you got to realize there's some sacrifices that you're going to be making.
Let me give you a data point, actually. So when I first got into the military, it was like your lifestyle is whatever your drill instructor was telling you in boot camp. Like my first 2 years in the Marine Corps, I was that's my lowest weight for like my adult life. Like I got down to 135 pounds, but I was fast. Like the athletic requirement for the Marine Corps is a 3-mile run, max set of pull-ups, and max set of sit-ups. And yeah, I could probably run a 3-mile under 20 minutes at that time because of my weight. Fast forward 2-3 years down the road, when I became a reservist and I came back home and I got to live a lifestyle where I'm not running every day, I gained back right out of boot camp, I got back to like 145 because that's where I was eating. I was not malnourished. And then once at that point, I was still running maybe like a sub 21 3 mile, and I could still max out at 20 pull-ups at the time. But then again, I was gonna say fast forward another 4 years in the military, I got up to the highest I've been ever. I think it was 170.
Okay.
I could not do 20 pull-ups, full lockout of the elbows and chin over the bar. I could probably get at least 15 to 20, but it was a lot harder for me to run that 3 miles under 28 minutes.
Because you're carrying more weight.
Right.
So, so it's much easier to lose weight when you're really overweight, but it's very hard to maintain, a certain weight once you've lost that.
Right.
Because
unless you keep that activity level.
Right. Your activity level has to keep increasing.
Okay.
Right. It has to because weight loss, what we see is like weight loss itself. Most of it comes from just your metabolic expenses, right? The fitness stuff is great and all this stuff is great, but it only accounts for a fraction of the calorie expenditure necessary, right? So most of the calorie expenses are really your organs and basically to keep daily function, right? To keep you alive.
Right.
The most of the energy is dedicated to that.
Okay.
And so that's why it's very hard to educate people on this, but that's why it's so important that you have a healthy lifestyle goal rather than this kind of zip and then abrupt, zipped and then abrupt shot. Because that doesn't create or foster that mindset, or doesn't train the body to get used to more weight. It just gets, hey, I've got to lose weight for this wedding.
Right.
Done. And then I just bounce right back because you can't maintain that level beyond the wedding, right? So once you get back, done. All right, I'll shut things down. But if you are gradual and you kind of grade that process, you can maintain a certain lifestyle and certain fitness indefinitely,
Do you ever get really big into like philosophy? Because one thing I like to say is like I want to teach people delayed gratification is very good for the mentality.
I don't
Go for philosophy.
And I'm not too much into philosophy. I think sometimes my patients would argue that I talk a lot. Sometimes it can feel like I'm
lecturing
or philosophizing. But no, I think it's important that people are educated on these processes.
Right.
And again, I wish obviously my wife is much smarter at this nutrition stuff and all that stuff. That's her wheel. This is way outside of my scope. But again, it just the small tidbit that I've scratched the surface on has just been so informative. But it kind of makes sense with just about everything else in life too. Is that steady moderation and gradual progression. Is really that's the key to just about everything, right? Just do it. You do it well and you do it consistently.
That's how you keep growing.
Yeah. You don't want to, if you look at the difference between, a Prius and a Hellcat, a Hellcat, it's super fast, but that thing's going to need a lot of work.
Okay.
I think it's going to need a lot of work. Think about the power output, right? Like it's just, if you're going to gun it, you're going to need new tires really quickly.
Oh, okay.
You're going to need new parts really quickly.
Yeah.
Prius, it doesn't have that much of an acceleration, but it's a slow, gradual thing, so things don't wear out as fast.
Interesting. Because I actually have the same analogy when it comes to weight loss, but I use it in terms of muscle. But I never saw it in the negative aspect, kind of in that. Because like when I tell people, or when normally it's like with females, like they don't want to get too bulky, but when they don't really have muscle in their body, you need muscle in order to burn calories.
Yeah,
like in a stable standpoint versus you right now, because now you think you're flabby, but you just need to have a greater BMR kind of thing.
Yeah, I agree, and that's been a hard thing too to continue to educate people on that, because again,
break stereotypes.
That's the same process that we were talking about earlier, is that so many people are fed these lies about body work and exercise and strength and condition that, oh man, you're gonna get these bulky arms or you're gonna get these bulky legs, but I mean that's not reality, you know. But and so it really and this kind of comes into when, you know, so what you're asking me earlier, what I'm working on is bone density work. A lot of my patients, they're really active.
Yeah.
Right? Super active. They're not like, hey, I've done nothing in my life. They're really active, but their activities were not designed to produce the kind of load and stress. So if you're doing if you're a cyclist, if you're, you know, doing Pilates or yoga or, you know, whatever, you know, if you're on the reformer, that is not enough stress to put on the bones to create
I see
the
what you're
changes
saying.
that you need, right?
Okay.
So you may have all the fitness in the world,
Right.
but you're still going to experience bone loss because you're not doing enough loading exercises. You've got to do and I don't mean spring loading, I don't mean band loading, I mean physical weight bearing exercises.
Okay.
So if you're not doing those things, you are not generating enough of a stimulus to actually trigger that response that I was telling you about, Wolff's Law. You're not generating enough stimulus to actually make those bones harder. So, you know, a lot of times that's usually the biggest conflict I see with a lot of my patients. They'll say, well, I do Pilates, I do all this stuff.
But they're not putting any weight.
But you're not. So how am I osteopenic or how do I have osteoporosis?
Is that your most common injury or condition?
No. That's just what I've been. I mean, that's
recently
a process that I've been working on for a long time with a functional medicine specialist, so it's just recently that things have just gotten really busy, and so it's been really interesting to kind of see the new literature that's coming out, the new information. So that's what I've been working on now, is really appreciating the new information and kind of again allowing myself to be more educated on the process, so that I can discuss that with my patients in a way that makes sense to them. So
I would love to keep this going in terms of the conditioning of the knowledge, and keep this like a reoccurring subject.
Absolutely.
Because it kind of goes hand in hand into both of our worlds, where because I used to work at a running store, I used to find a lot of injuries is mainly in the back for runners, but it's also because their weight load is on their legs, their lower extremities. And since they never do upper body movement, or they shy away from it because it also makes them slower or perceived slower because they're heavier.
Yeah. I mean, muscle mass makes you heavier. And I think that's what you'll just, everyone just has to reconcile that, right? That's the stress point you'll have to be okay with. Like, hey, here's some pros and cons to everything, right? And I think at the end of the day, the more we can get young people doing more weight-bearing exercises, the better.
Okay.
And the sooner we can start to kind of change this process where more and more people are not suffering from this. And again, because most people who have osteopenia or osteoporosis, it's not like a disease where you're like, oh my God, I feel like I'm losing bone mass.
Yeah.
You know, it's usually because I fell and I fractured like multiple areas at the same time. And then they go, oh, snap. No pun intended. you have really, really thin bones. You have really, really brittle bones. You're like, how could this be?
Yeah.
So again, it's not a condition that you can actually appreciate. Like, you don't wake up and go, oh my God, I think my bone density is questionable.
Okay.
That's not the case. It takes testing, but most of the time people find out literally the hard way.
Okay.
It's usually from a fall, or, you know, like, how did I fracture? I just fell from my chair to the floor.
Yeah.
How did I fracture my hip, or how did I fracture my shoulder, or how did I fracture my arm? So, and then they, you know, through X-ray, and you can really see it. It's pretty opaque, and you just see how much bone loss. It's not as bright. And so they're like, well, we're gonna need to do a scan and make sure. So when you do a bone density scan, and then that's when it's confirmed that you have this disease. And so, but the disease itself is it's underlying. You don't really feel anything until you really feel something.
Okay, so now that gives me a very good selling point for me, actually. Yeah. So welcoming people into my powerlifting world. Not necessarily I want everyone to be a powerlifter and just increase your max. I just want everyone to hit a certain percentage of their body weight to their squat, bench, deadlift.
I encourage everybody.
Bone density.
Everybody needs to keep doing that.
Okay.
The more dense your bones are, the better. The less likely you are to have any of these weird fractures later.
Yeah, better life longevity.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, and let me get into this question. I should
You're
like
welcome.
now.
Another business idea. You're welcome.
Well, no, it's
pending,
building
patent
to that.
pending,
I was
patent
building on that.
patent
We
pending.
can do it together. One thing I'm truly interested about with everyone is more like personal psychology, and this is a question I ask everyone. I don't know if I asked you on this first time. It's like, who are the 5 close people that you associate with, and how are they affecting you currently?
Me, myself, and I. No, just
Dylan. Shout out Dave Chappelle.
There are so many people that I coordinate with, but one is my mentor and my big brother almost. He's kind of like my big brother, and his name is David Fred, and he has a company down in Rockville that works on making prosthetics and orthotics.
Oh wow!
And they work a lot with the military.
Is it also like mechanical
Yeah.
prosthetics?
Yep.
Oh,
Yep.
okay.
So they do a lot. They do a lot of that. But he's been like my big brother, my mentor.
Okay.
And he's kind of, if I have any issues, questions, if I'm struggling with anything, that's my go-to guy. So
Okay.
So he's kind of my linchpin. And then I've got a few folks that are like former patients, but they're captains of industry and they've been in industry for a long time. And so,
in the physical therapy industry?
No, different, completely different. These are like Wall Street folks and power, big powerful people who have years of experience with international commerce or have run big companies.
Okay.
And so it's just been really great to develop a relationship with them. Obviously they started out as patients, but over time, and I remember when I was telling him I'm going to start my own practice, they gave me a lot of practical advice and really allowed me to kind of take that next step. So it's been great, almost 7 years now, later, to be able to still have conversations with them and being able to just kind of get on the phone and call them and talk about.
By any chance, can you give like occupations of those? So you have
one
mentor.
Yeah, so one is a prosthetist orthotist.
Mm-hmm.
The other is CEO. He was a former CEO of a big company in Virginia.
Okay.
And then the others are 2 physical therapists that they do a lot of research. They do a lot of work on evidence-led research on how to increase overall patient compliance.
Okay.
How to create
retention.
Yeah, not necessarily retention, but how to create this kind of we call a therapeutic alliance.
Okay.
Right, a positive therapeutic alliance. So they just and they also go in quite a bit on managing chronic pain, etc. So they're people that I look at a lot of their research, I look at a lot of the content. So they curate a lot of research, meaning that they spend an inordinate amount of time reading all the research and combing through all the research that's coming out from in the physical therapy field, and they kind of collate it into a nice digestible chunks, and they post that
digestible information.
Yeah, so it's been really great to kind of see how closely my bias when it comes to performance and how close my bias aligns with theirs. Okay. So it's been great to kind of have that mindset and go, oh man, I'm heading in the right direction, and now I've got evidence that confirms that what we're doing is spot on.
Confirms your thesis.
So it's been really great to kind of have that. But there's just a lot of reading, and I do obviously a lot of self-improvement, a lot of reading, pulling up a lot of research articles, and sifting through the research and making sure, is it legit research, is it crap research, so it's a lot of work, because you got to do your due diligence. You got to make sure that the information that you're getting is accurate, right? It's not just fluff. And so learning how to read that stuff, sometimes you need other people's opinions, and so it's been great to be able to kind of send those out to a couple of my buddies out in California and just say, hey, guys, did you take a look at this? Does this look right?
Yeah.
Like, oh yeah, man, we're seeing all this, and so they're just researchers. All they do is research biomechanics. They research, how well people get after physical therapy. What type of physical therapy is most effective? What type of treatment protocols are most effective?
Yeah.
And so this is where we get a lot of this new information about how, a foam rolling or the Theragun, these are really low-hanging fruit. These are not really therapeutic. They're much more effective therapies and therapeutic benefits than those. These are temporary things. And so how we all determine that isn't just because we feel that that's what it is. There's actually evidence now, and there's research done that's demonstrated over and over and over again that these things are not as good as we thought they are or as we think they are.
Okay.
So, being able to demonstrate that and articulate that is important. But obviously before, I just knew, I was like, I got a strong suspicion that this is just not doing what we think it's doing. Otherwise, you don't need it that much.
Right.
You wouldn't need it that much. It would be boom, done. Okay, you move on.
Yeah.
So, but it's been great to have people who have dedicated their lives to just research.
Okay, then let's wrap up on this. I've always liked to use my imagination. So imagine.
Oh God!
Imagine the world. Imagine the world.
You do realize I have a 14-month-old, right?
That's perfect.
My imagination is limited right now. My imagination is really like, will she sleep through the night? Imagine that.
Well, think about this. If we woke up tomorrow and we lived in the world of where we have Iron Man technology and everyone woke up to a heads-up display, what would you want that greeting? Like, if you could write a greeting for everyone in the world to see, like a whatever message you would want everyone to see when they first wake up, what would you have it write or say?
Get active, get moving, get going.
Kimbio Physio. Okay.
Yep.
That's solid.
That's been my mantra for a long time, and it's been great to be able to kind of incorporate it in my business practice. But that's life,
Okay.
Get active, get moving, get going.
Boom.
There's not much else you can do.
Always moving forward in whatever you're doing.
Mm-hmm. Sometimes, you can move backwards from time to time, but it's
or
okay.
just keep moving.
Yeah, you just gotta keep moving.
Okay.
Yeah, but just do those 3 things, and life will pretty much take care of itself.
Nice. Is there anything that you have coming up that you want to shout out? Any events?
Nothing major yet. Still working on some news. You have to come pick my brain in a couple weeks. There's some other news some other stuff that I'm working on that it's gonna be pretty huge in the next coming weeks. So
I'll be glad to.
Fingers crossed.
There you go.
But yeah, so just kind of working on trying to create more synergy with my wife, who's a nutritionist and speech pathologist.
I see that.
And working with a sports psychologist, and so we have a sports psychologist that we work with as well. So I'll give you a hint. Those are hints.
Okay.
Those are hints.
I like that.
Dropping hints.
I like that. Just for myself, June 8th, Saturday, from 12 p.m. to 2 p.m. at Artform Athletics. I will be teaming up with Priscilla Johnson, and we will be doing a deadlift seminar. Now I'll have a selling point to increase your bone density and learning how to properly deadlift and to find out your max. That will be going on, and I think that's all for now.
Well, appreciate it. Thanks for having me on again.
No.
I can't believe I made it twice. I made it. Mama, I made it.
You're going to be a definitely reoccurring guest. But
man, I appreciate it, man. Thank you so much.
I appreciate you. Thank you, Hiza.
Oh, not a problem, man.